started with the Division of Public Works. We'll be starting with the Highway Department on page 387. I'm going to turn it over to David.
Chairman, Commissioners, David Spears, Director of Public Works, here to present the 2020 budget, and all of our department heads are here also today to answer your questions.
I got wet roads out there.
You can't fight Mother Nature. That's just the way it is. But, anyway, all right, our mission: efficiently manage county transportation infrastructure and local natural resources in a manner that supports a safe, secure, and healthy environment for Sedgwick County residents and businesses. Departments included today are highway, noxious weeds, storm drainage, environmental resources, total of about 126 FTEs in 6 locations. Highway, mission and services. Mission: provide a safe and efficient transportation system through management of an effective road and bridge maintenance program and a well-balanced capital improvement program. We manage 600 miles of county roads and connecting links, 600 bridges. Services are delivered by about 94 FTEs in the highway fund and 7 in the local sales tax fund. Operation is supported by consulting engineers and a variety of highway and bridge construction contractors. Highway administration provides core management, administrative and physical functions for public works. 13 FTEs located at the Public Works building at the Stillwell Yard. No change in service level proposed for 2020. Engineering: perform in-house survey, drafting, design, federal bridge inspection program, and all project inspection. Manage outside engineering design contracts and construction contracts. Manage preventive maintenance program for approximately 100 miles of roads each year. 18 FTEs made up entirely of engineers, surveyors, and engineering technicians. No change in service level proposed for 2020. Okay, highway, road, and bridge maintenance. Perform road and bridge maintenance and repair, culvert and bridge replacement and repair, snow and ice operations, mowing, traffic control, and various other tasks. About 70 FTEs provide maintenance and construction services from 6 yard locations around the county. The road and bridge system includes approximately 600 bridges and 600 miles of roads. No change in service level proposed for 2020. Includes $75,000 for storm contingency. You can see that the budget request from 19 to 20 is pretty flat. There's the category of what we spend the money on: personnel, contractuals, commodities, equipment. We have one highway decision package. Title is Bridge Inspection Team Leader. The rationale: federal regulations require biennial bridge inspections by qualified inspectors. Package would create a dedicated position and pay commensurate with required qualifications. Public Works would be able to continue performing inspections economically in-house, as opposed to having a consultant do it for probably 6 digits. You can see the cost of that: $66,422. Noxious weeds.
David?
Yes.
So that you were just talking about, you're currently spending 6 digits on this?
No, we're not. But
that's what you're projected?
If we couldn't do it in-house and had to hire a consultant to do all those inspections for it, it would definitely be in the 6 digits.
Right, but currently we're not having consultants do that?
No, we do it. We are doing it. What this is, we had a person who was in inspection of projects move over and help our bridge engineer last year and she learned this, and she's now qualified and has all the credentials to do this. So what we need to do is pay her properly for doing that instead of what she was doing before. And so we have to create a position to do that.
So would you be eliminating her old position then?
No, we really wouldn't. We really need that inspector also for out in the field. So this would be adding a position.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, noxious weeds. Mission: to control and eradicate noxious weeds on all property within Sedgwick County. a reduced cost herbicide program, education and assistance program, direct treatment program to control noxious weeds, and this is delivered by 5.5 FTEs located at the Stillwell Yard. The budget requests inspect and map over 400 properties known to have critical noxious weeds, provide herbicides at a reduced cost to encourage landowners to control noxious weeds on their property, inspection and treatment of over 2,450 acres of county property and right-of-way for noxious and common weeds, respond to complaints and requests for inspection, inspect and treat 1,670 acres of KDOT managed properties and right-of-way for noxious weeds under contract with KDOT. There you see the budget is actually reduced from 1919. And there's the various categories. Storm drainage.
We're in 1919 now.
No.
The budget was reduced from 1919 is what you said.
Did I say?
Yeah.
Did I misspeak? I'm sorry. I'm trying to go too fast.
It's a good year.
But he remembers 1990.
Like, whoa, way back in time.
He lost his place.
His face turned red.
All right. Storm drainage, mission and services. And Scott Lindeback is here today. I tell you, he's doing a great job. He's been out all week, many hours, all over the county looking at drainage problems. And he's great with the public, and then he sends emails back about it, and I can't even hardly keep up with his emails. So anyway, we're lucky to have him. Anyway, the mission is to provide cost-effective programs that minimize property damage from flooding and erosion, protect water quality, and enforce local stormwater regulations in a manner that supports a safe, secure, and healthy environment in Sedgwick County. Maintain county drainage infrastructure. We fund city and county flood control operation, targeted maintenance on natural stream systems, stormwater plans, studies, permits, and projects, Stormwater Management Advisory Board, which is temporarily suspended. All right, so and we also have stream maintenance. Our crew clears channel obstructions, bridge obstructions, and supports other operations with heavy equipment. We have 6 full-time equivalents with 2 bulldozers and 3 tracked excavators working out of the Stillwell Yard. And we're responsible for 43 miles of channel with bank lines approved by the Division of Water Resources, and then we also work in many other places as needed. Flood control funds the joint program with City of Wichita. City crews maintain 97 miles of levees and 5,613 acres of right-of-way. Critical infrastructure protecting Wichita, Park City, Valley Center, Hayesville, and portions of unincorporated Sedgwick County from flooding on the Arkansas River system. Also manage flood control CIP. Stormwater management. Coordinate drainage projects for public works, review drainage plans for new development, provide engineering for implementation of stormwater regulations and issuance of stormwater permits by environmental resources, coordination of permits from state and federal agencies for public works projects, staff support to the Stormwater Management Advisory Board, liaison to City of Wichita for flood control. We have 1 full-time equivalent at Public Works Building. That's Scott. You can see the budget. Note there's a $500,000 reduction because the CIP budget is not yet included. There's all the categories. So storm drainage has 1 decision package which we requested before but did not receive. I'll try again. After flooding in 2016, the BOCC identified the stream maintenance program that should be enhanced. 2 full-time equivalents were added in 2017. A mid-sized Track hoe was added in 2018. Compact equipment was added in 2019. Now a mid-size roll-off trailer is needed to allow the crew to haul their own equipment and increase mobility. So the request is for $78,230. That's a picture of the trailer similar to that we would like to get. Environmental resources. This is Susan Erlenwine's department. Mission to enhance the quality of life in Sedgwick County through conservation of water and natural resources, waste minimization, coordination of solid waste management, and provide environmental education and services to citizens, businesses, and local governments. So we have an environmental resource programs, Sedgwick County Conservation District, solid waste programs, household hazardous waste facility, and almost 13 FTEs at the Stillwell Yard. So, environmental resource programs include annual inspection of 1,693 stormwater outfalls and collection of 96 surface water samples, issuance of county stormwater permits in coordination with Stormwater Division to maintain compliance with Sedgwick County's KDHE permit, review 1/3 of county departments annually for chemical storage, safety data sheets, and other safety measures, environmental assessments, research, and special projects as requested, renewable energy issues, groundwater issues, new land or building purchases, water well appropriations. So the Conservation District program includes provide annual funding and staff to the Sedgwick County Conservation District to assist in obtaining state funds for installation of a minimum of 22 best management practices. Environmental Resources 2020 solid waste programs include updates to the solid waste plan, solid waste facility inspections, 200, disposal of illegally dumped waste, 899 tons, management of storm debris, education programs, operation of the household hazardous waste facility, including the swap and shop and small quantity generator programs, remote HHW collection events in each district. Special projects are bulky waste coupon program, Christmas tree recycling, special cleanups, e-waste collection event. There you can see the 2020 budget. That's also flat. There are the categories. And there's the division summary for all departments. Also flat. And there's the summary of the decision packages, just two. 144,000. Be glad to answer any questions, or staff is here to follow up.
Hey, last year we got a couple more vehicles and so forth for stream maintenance. What did we purchase those out of? What fund?
That's
The storm drainage will exclusively, almost exclusively be paid for from your general.
Okay. We didn't use anything out of our solid waste fee for that.
Not that I recall, but we can verify.
Lindsay, wasn't that the
Delano. It was the delay. Part of some of those were.
Oh, that's right. Thank you. So, if you want to talk about that, okay. So, if you recall, last year there was actually a transfer that was brought to you mid-year to do a transfer of township dissolution fund
That's
revenues,
right.
and then that was moved over to the equipment reserve, and that's
Yeah.
what was used to purchase those. So,
Okay.
thank you, Jim.
I was trying to think of where we got that money, and I didn't recall it coming out of the general funds.
There you go.
Okay. Good.
I think we use that solid waste fee to clean up down there at Deer Lakes Estates.
Yeah.
If that might be what you're thinking about.
Okay. So we don't have any extra money someplace that we can move over to buy your trailer, huh?
Not that I know of.
Not that we know of either.
No, I just remember we bought it. I knew we bought that out of something different.
Well, I'll tell you what you guys have done for us has been really great. You know, the 2 extra people. I mean, that's letting us almost I'm not going to say we do twice as much, but we do a lot more than we used to. And I show you that map every December of the projects that they've done.
Good. Do we know how many tires we got yet?
No. You want to come on now.
We had 2,663 vehicles come to the event. That's compared to 2017, which had just over 1,300. So we doubled the number of vehicles. And they're still removing the tires, so we won't have a final count until probably early June. I plan on doing a presentation at the June 12th commission meeting.
Okay. David mentioned we picked up like 800 and some tons or something like that. How much did we pick up out of the ditch? I have to go back to
Did
the
you say
slide.
something?
I think that was on this part here.
Oh.
Are we finding any tires now after we did that tire roundup out in the ditches?
What do you?
We still find them, but not as many. That's why we don't turn anybody away when they come there. Some of them aren't really what we've asked for, but we take them anyway, because if we don't, they'll end up out in the county and we'll have to pick them up anyway.
I don't know. I was just hoping that we reduce the amount that we find in the ditches.
See what he was talking about. Trying to find what you were talking about. That.
We have a special program with townships.
Yeah, it says 899 tons of illegally dumped waste.
That's
We had 899 tons of illegally dumped waste.
for about 12 years. That's over a 12-year period.
12 years. This isn't last year.
No, thank God. No,
That would have been something.
when the townships pick up material that's been illegally dumped, we have a form that we give them that when they take it to this disposal facility, is charged to my department. So they provide the labor, we provide the free disposal costs to help get the material cleaned up.
Okay. Well, that number just struck me as rather high, especially
Yeah,
if
that
we
would
did
be
it
for
all
1 year. Yeah.
All right.
Questions?
Commissioner Howell.
Thank you. I'm curious, what happens to tires when we're not doing the tire roundup? How is that handled between the roundups?
A lot of the townships pick them up and
Store
take them to disposal facility.
So they have to pay that fee?
But
or
it comes
whatever.
back on me, yeah.
And how much is that, roughly?
It varies on how many tires they get. The disposal fee varies on the size of the tires, so anywhere from $3 to $30-something, depending on the size.
Is there anything happening with that? You and I talked a little bit about the mattress situation, that type of thing. Is that happening still, or do we know?
I've presented it to the Solid Waste Committee meeting twice now, and what they want to do is for us to monitor that for a year, looking at the townships and the cities and how many mattresses they're getting. We've done a survey of townships, and the townships are picking up about 4 to 5 times the number of tires than they are mattresses right now. So, but we've looked at costs of shredders and other things that I'll be talking to you about next week sometime.
Okay. And what that's getting to, just for my colleagues, why I'm asking is because the transfer stations have started charging pretty high fees for things like mattresses. And so some communities, you find a lot of these laying on the side of the road and that type of thing. I mean, even in Oakland, for example, there's a lot of them there. And with that higher fee, I think we'll start seeing a lot more of this. The challenge, I think, that the landfills are not wanting those pockets in their landfill. They're hard to crush once they're in the system, but it can be shredded or even recycled potentially. And so there's other ways of handling that, but it kind of seems to follow along the lines of the solid waste fee type programs we've already been dealing with.
We have done a survey of some of the mattress companies in town. Some of them will not pick up your old mattress at all. Some of them charge up to $50-something each, and it's anywhere in between. And the disposal sites vary from $10 a mattress or box springs up to $25, well, actually $30 each. So that's what's happened recently.
So the proposal, I think, that we might consider would be an industrial shredder that would allow us the chance to process this and get them into something that doesn't require a fee at the transfer station other than just the bulk weight or the bulk size of that. But in terms of charging a fee because it's a mattress, that would be gone. Correct?
Right. We've got some numbers on that I'll share with you next week.
And the reason I also ask about that is I think the tires could also be shredded potentially rather than doing what we're doing. Right.
True. The shredder we were looking at can shred mattresses and tires, and it's just under $300,000 for the shredder.
Very good. I don't know if this is the right time to bring this up or not, but the stream maintenance, one reason that continues to be a problem, I think, is that we've never identified a revenue stream for that. And I know there's been some discussion about in 2023 the mill levy going down by 0.601 mils. And I know there's going to be a lot of discussion as to what to do with, whether we should leave that resolution in place or rescind that. I know that's a discussion that's coming up. But if it was for a purpose like for infrastructure, like for stream maintenance, I'd be interested potentially in having a discussion about dedicating the revenue stream to stream maintenance. And I just want that idea to be out there. It doesn't mean we have to deal with it right this minute, obviously, but I would love to see a revenue stream for the stream, not for stream maintenance, but for stormwater infrastructure. And right now we don't have anything in the county for stormwater infrastructure.
No,
It's just really not being addressed at all. And we know we've got hundreds of millions of dollars of things we could do if we had revenue, right?
We have a miscellaneous drainage line item in the CIP and in the budget, and so we do little things, with like what's happened now. Our crews build 6-8 bridges a year, but that doesn't even touch what you're talking about, the $500,000 of projects that have been identified. That's what you're talking about, the big projects. 500 million. I'm sorry, 500 million.
Yeah, 3 more zeros. So anyway, that 0.601 mils right now is around $3 million, I think, maybe a little more. And by 2023, I guess it'll probably be about $3.5 million. So it's not a lot, but if that Stormwater Advisory Board was able to do what they were wanting to do, they could leverage that money and turn that $3.5 million into something a lot more than that. Let's say $6 or $7 million potentially for projects, regional projects that would help with this infrastructure. So I still want to throw the idea out there. I would love to have a discussion about how to fund stormwater, or should say stormwater infrastructure. And to me, that may be one solution we ought to at least have out there as an item of discussion, because we haven't had a chance to talk about that here. The last thing, I don't know, does your budget here include maintenance of the cold mix roads? Is that part of this budget? Or is that CIP? We'll talk about that.
Well, that's almost a subject within itself. Any budgetary things that we do now with maintenance are in this budget, yes, but this is not what we really, this will not sustain our 150 miles of coal mix roads, what we're doing right now. It's impossible. So that's why we've talked about in years past getting a pug mill so that it will give us the flexibility to make our own coal mix and then take care of those 150 miles of roads.
So when's the right time to bring up the discussion about pug mill? Is that
well,
right now or later?
It's in our ballpark, and the chairman asked here a few weeks ago, and we've been doing some other things, but we do have the preliminary draft ready of the return on investment of the pug mill. And I think Jim we had another person, Lynn Packer did it, and Jim's checking it now, and then I'll look at it, and then we'll get that to you.
I don't want to miss the chance to talk about it during budget hearings. So whenever the right time is to bring this up, I do want to make sure we don't miss our chance to have the discussion. And then this might be for Lindsay, but what exactly is Fund 206?
The highway tax fund.
Okay, so that's sales tax dollars?
No, that is, so we have we have 8 county property tax supported funds, and the highway fund is that portion that is funded with property tax revenues, not the sales tax that actually happens in the general fund. It's also where that special city county highway money gets deposited into, is that highway fund.
All right, thank you. That's all my questions.
Any more questions? You're getting off easy, David.
Well, that was our only presentation for this afternoon, but we do have time for discussion if there's anything else you'd like to talk about.
Did we want to finish? Oh, we can't because we don't have people here. Any questions on anything that we've covered up to this point?
I have one.
Commissioner Hunt?
Is that?
Nothing. I was just saying now probably would be a good time to talk about it.
I wouldn't mind talking about Pug Mill for just a minute, but this, before I get to that, I want to talk about something that came up yesterday, and that is, I don't really have a strong preference whether a division manager or director would want to fill staff with a couple of part-time positions versus a full-time position. To me, I think we ought to have a policy that would allow leeway for those managers to do it however they want. I think we ought to give discretion to our staff to say, if I can find some part-time people and I think they'll help me with what I'm trying to accomplish here, why not allow 2 part-time positions equivalent to 1 full-time position? I mean, I think to us it shouldn't really matter. I don't know why we would just have a policy that simply disallows, rather than defining this many part-time and this many full-time, why don't we just give that discretion over to the staff, allow them to develop their staff however they want to. I think it's a discussion we ought to. I guess I don't know why we would care whether it's a full-time or 2 part-time. If it meets the staff's desires, then I'm okay either way.
So let me ask, can I ask for just a sense of clarification? So, like in 911, for example, they have 7 full-time positions on the books, but they aren't full right now. So if somebody came and said, I can work part-time, are we saying that we can't hire them because we don't have any part-time positions available?
We work with departments and allow them to hire the part-time people.
Okay.
We just have to be notified beforehand.
You have to do what?
Be notified beforehand.
Okay.
Because we're holding that as a full-time position.
Okay.
So
they do have discretion.
So they do.
So for the ones that are already on the staffing table, if it's 1.0 FTE and they want to break it into 2, it sounds like both budget and HR allow them to do that if they want to make that change. But we also allow folks to go through Tom to create temporary positions. Like Alora said yesterday, maybe she wants to keep those full-time positions on her staffing table. Maybe she doesn't want to give them up. She's hoping someday to fill them. And so Tom can actually create temporary positions just through going through budget and HR to make sure some money is there to create and respond immediately. And so I do think there's a couple options available to folks now. If they're ready to permanently convert them, they can do that without even coming to you all. And then if they just want a short-term fix until they can get it in the budget, they can go through Tom to get those temporary part-time positions authorized for up to 12 months. If that helps.
So to answer, I guess, my question, what you're saying is what I'm suggesting is already possible and available right now,
Yes.
no problem. So I want to make sure managers know that if they want to hire people for half-time positions, they can do that. Okay.
We'll talk this through with staff, but I just want to make sure that when we start to touch the staffing table, that the commission is aware of that and approves that. And I think from a policy perspective, it makes some sense. And if you use 911 as the poster child, it makes some sense to allow her to have some part-time positions. She doesn't have to fill them. If she can fill her FTEs, then she technically maybe wouldn't even need the part-time positions. I don't mind from a policy perspective giving departments the ability to do that with part-time positions and do it formally through staffing table. I just want to make sure we keep control of the staffing table and don't let it get unwieldy without the commission knowing what's going on.
We do. I mean, I've brought numerous times I've come to the commission with staffing table adjustments where we're converting either multiple part-times into a full-time or some full-times into part-time, depending on the work demand, especially when you've got 24/7 functions like 911 or CommCare, that sort of thing. So we, generally, if we're going to make a permanent change, that will come to you as an agenda item, and we'll make sure that we've run it through both HR and finance to make sure that the money is equal. But that's how, and then short term, if it's an immediate need, we may use a temporary position instead. But I think maybe the divisions that are used, or the departments are used to 24/7 operations have to have that mix of full-time and part-time to address some of those odd shifts and that sort of thing as well.
Along that line, I think we ought to be a little more open to even allowing flexibility when you advertise for a job. Open it up and say if someone is qualified for a position or you want to hire somebody and they're only available to them maybe it's a secondary job. Maybe it's not to them. They don't have enough time in their day to do a full-time position, but they want to do a sidekick kind of thing for themselves. They want to do 1,000 hours a year. If they're qualified and the manager or director wants to do that, I think we may be missing out on an opportunity if we don't make that really, I guess, something we would allow a lot of flexibility there. So when we advertise our jobs, I looked at the thing. It says, it's pretty stringent, a lot of the positions, and so I would assume if someone doesn't feel like they can do everything that's asked there, they may not even apply for the job. So I'd like it to be understood that we have part-time positions available. For example, the detention deputies, maybe that's an answer. If we had detention deputies that could do part-time, and maybe they already allow that, but I don't think it's advertised that way.
I don't know, when detention deputies do machine, they don't have any part-time authorized now.
Doesn't mean it couldn't, but they just don't have to.
Some of it depends on the training I know that at ComCare there are training requirements for certain positions, and it doesn't matter how many people you have doing the job, you have to train them all. So if you're going to spend money on training, and I know detention deputies take a lot of training, sometimes it's more cost effective to train one instead of two.
So maybe that's a bad example, but I get my point. I just want to make sure we allow the flexibility. I don't think we ought to. I don't think I care as much about how you fill the positions as long as they get filled with good people. I have a discussion on Pug Mill I'll have to raise whenever you guys are ready for the next topic.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions so far? Go back, Commissioner Howe.
Just a thought on that 150 miles of coal mix road. I mean, you talk about how it's unsustainable, and I really think one of the keys is how long has that R342 program gone? How many years have we been doing that program altogether? It started a long time ago.
I can't remember. Where a commissioner picks a mile every other year. Jim, do you remember how far back it goes?
The every other year is 2 or 3 years worth, and before that it goes way back.
Way back. And that's how you pretty much ended up with those roads. I mean, that program's been how those roads came to be, I assume, in all the cases.
The history of the coal mix roads is how it started was we built them around the periphery of Wichita as development occurred, and as citizens' calls came in, hey, we've got a new development, this road's dusty. It hadn't been fully developed yet, and so we did a coal mix road. But then as Wichita annexed, they would take over the road and then build a nice 4-lane road. So it was always intended and is a temporary road. They last 4 to 7 years depending on what type of traffic's on it and how much traffic. So that's how it started. Well, it became wildly popular. People really liked it. It's cheap to put down. So then we started building them all around the county. And that's what the problem is. Now we have 150 miles of them, and Wichita's not going to annex all of these miles out there, and so we're stuck with having to take care of them. That's what the problem is.
Have we torn any of those roads out and converted them back to gravel?
No. We think that, that can be done, but you will face a lot of phone calls from the public. They will not like that.
I'm not suggesting. I'm just saying you say they last 4 to 7 years, but what reality, what you really mean by that is we do something to the road to extend the life and rejuvenate that road every once in a while.
And when we have a pug mill, we can do that. Then we came up with we invented it at Andale Concrete, put it down, and we started using that. But then Andale's the only one that can do it, so they started raising the price. And so that kicked us out of that because it was just way too expensive just to maintain a coal mix road to use that product anymore. So that's sort of that's a history, and that's sort of where we're at now.
So if we had a pug mill, you could maintain those roads more.
No question about it.
Yeah. And I don't know I know you guys are doing a study right now, but we're talking about budget today, so I wanted to kind of raise the issue up for discussion. But I think last time we talked about it, Pug Mill was around $3 million, but those roads will cost us $3 million to maintain over some period of time. So there's obviously a break-even point in the future. We don't know when that. You guys are going to study that and tell us what that is, but there's a break-even point. And I think that in terms of trying to save taxpayer dollars, I'd rather maintain those roads and do it with less tax dollars. And if the Pug Mill is the answer to that question, I think that's something we ought to be looking at, rather than trying to either not maintain the roads, which I think is not an answer, or convert them back to gravel, which I don't think is an answer, or to pay other contractors to maintain these roads at a higher cost, which I don't think is a good answer either. So we have a situation, and I think the answer to that is the most efficient, really acceptable solution would be to purchase a Pug Mill. And I know that there's been some discussion about buying the materials we need at an asphalt plant. The problem is they're not really able to do that when they're busy with other projects. Mm-hmm. And the times of the year that they can do that, it's not good for us to do that because we have to do this in hot weather, right?
Right, and when we want to do it is when they're doing other things, because we also work at the same time in the summer. But at Public Works, we believe the right answer is to have a Pug Mill to take care of those 150. That's what we believe. It'll pay for itself in a short period of time. We're figuring that right now. But
what is a Pug Mill? Is that what you're saying? I thought you guys were talking. I thought you said puppy mill. I was like, what is going on? A Pug Mill?
Yes.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Puppy mills aren't as popular.
I know. Okay.
It mixes up.
Can we just clarify this for me?
It mixes up material with oil and makes an asphalt road.
Okay.
It's like a giant mixer.
All right.
And
then it lays it down, or something else
no,
lays
well,
it down?
we would lay it down.
Okay. Sorry, thank you for the clarification.
No, I'm sorry. You need a full-scale training on that, and you have not had that, and I'm sorry.
No, it's fine.
So when I first became a commissioner,
full scale.
It's fine.
when I first became a commissioner a few years ago, I believe the budget that very first year that I was here was for 5 miles every other year. Now, Jim, you're right. Used to be a long time ago. It used to be every year they did a mile, and that was probably not good. So I think the idea of doing a mile every other year it would be reasonable. But I think the first year I was a commissioner, I think you budgeted, I believe, about $375 or $3. It was about $400,000 for all 5 miles. Is what the budget was that first year I was here.
Yeah, but the price goes up. Oil, like gasoline and all that, materials go up, and so it's higher, but it is what it is, as they say.
I guess my point is it for each of the 5 districts, the way I think this program probably came to be, and I don't know this for a fact because I wasn't here a long time ago, but I understand my district better than anybody, and I think that if I have a problem in my district that's well beyond the ability of the township to solve, and it's important to my district, and it would be a very important road for people to travel around the county, and I understand that how difficult this is, and it seems to be no other solutions other than the county stepping in to solve the problem. The township just isn't ever going to be able to do it. If I have that kind of a road, and I simply say to my colleagues, look, I've got this road, it's important to my district, and if you have one in your district, I'll support your idea and your needs in your district if you'll support me in mine. So I think it was basically just a friendly agreement between commissioners, I assume. They said, I've identified a road, would you support me in my road? If I'll support you in your road. My guess is how that probably happened. I don't know. But 87th Street was one of the worst roads in the county. You've told me that numerous times. Mm-hmm. And we fixed 87th Street with this program, and fixed a half mile. Southeast High School had a half mile that was unpaved going over to 39th Street from between Pawnee and 39th. We did the half mile on this program, and that was really important, I think, for the kids' safety. It would have never been paved had it not been for this program. So I guess my point is, there are things in my district that I'm aware of that this program is very good as a commissioner to solve a problem. I'm not saying to pave every road, but to pave little things, and certainly to maintain the roads we've already got. I like the 342 program. I think that the Pug Mill actually is the answer to maintaining what we already have, but I don't want to add to the 150 miles in a very terrible way. But I do think we have certain things in the county that we can address very slowly, and that program, that Pug Mill opens that up. It's not, compared to everything else we're doing in the budget, that's a very small cost overall. And the reality is we're going to maintain those roads once we pay them. We're going to maintain them. The question is, what's the cheapest solution? And that Pug Mill is the answer. So I would like to see us seriously consider a reconsideration of 342 program, as well as putting a pug mill on our CIP list. And I think, again, I'm not a huge fan of maintaining our bridges with debt, but I think that when you buy equipment that's unusual, this is going to last 30 years or whatever. The pug mill that you purchase will last decades.
Last one did.
So you pay for something that lasts 30 years, to use debt for that would be a reasonable use of debt, in my opinion. So I'm not against debt. I'm just against using debt for our bridge program. But I think debt for admin buildings makes sense, and debt for a pug mill would make sense to me. But anyway, so I'd like to throw that out there as kind of where I am as a commissioner. I think we ought to reconsider the pug mill and reconsider how to maintain these roads.
We should have a report to you within a couple weeks.
Thank you. That's all I got.
Commissioner Meitzner?
Yeah, related to this discussion, I'm glad so you're working on a report, return on investment on a pug. Is it PUG?
PUG.
Mill.
Which is a dog, type of dog.
It is,
I just wanna
for
clarify
sure.
that.
Pug. Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. No.
Okay.
But that I knew
We could call it a mixing plant.
Yeah, there you go. So thank you. So we're going to be able to look at that for a business decision and a budget,
Yes.
an investment decision, budget decision,
Yes, sir.
maintenance decision, all those
All the
metrics.
above.
So that's separate than this 352 type program, or whatever it's called. My personal feeling, Commissioner Howell, is that I saw that in play a little bit at the city council, and it's very it's non-scientific. It's just moods and feelings, and it's it doesn't. I think we ought to have a metrics that traffic, safety, condition, economic development, all those things should come into a fold that's looked at by everybody and recommended, hey, this is the priorities, and maybe any commissioner could say, hey, I'd like this section looked at, but if it doesn't fall into the next 10 years or top 50 projects or whatever, then it's in there, but it isn't going anywhere, and it shouldn't unless we want to get into the world of picking winners and losers as it relates to roads. Because if it doesn't have anything, it's a dangerous way to go, I believe, and I saw it in play, and I don't think it's fair for the county in whole. You do know your district way better than I do. I agree, but who's to say Michael's district, his half mile is more important than yours, and they both have 80 cars a day? I think it's arbitrary, and I think it's a bad way to go from my perspective. So I would prefer a capital improvement metrics that includes multiple items.
May I briefly respond to that comment?
Sure.
One of the reasons the traffic counts may be lower is because the roads are in such bad shape that people won't go down them.
Did people just choose to live there, or did they?
They're not
did
just
they
people
go there
living
because
there,
of a
but in
road?
terms of traveling around the county. I think there's places where the roads are so dangerous. They're one lane wide. I had a school bus tip over on one of the roads since I've been a commissioner. Some of the roads are down to one lane wide.
That would fall into safety, one of the categories that I would say. We're talking from the same page there.
But I would just say that the traffic counts are very low. So if you look at this from an engineering analysis of whether this road should or should not be paved, it probably will never qualify. But I happen to know where people live, and I know how they travel, and when I've talked to hundreds of conversations about why certain roads are important, and I guess my perspective is I've got some understanding about what needs to happen in my district that's hard to share through an engineering analysis. If you look at I think on a bigger scale, on a CIP list, we do analyze things and to determine what needs to happen, and I think Public Works does a great job. Mark Worst does a great job trying to figure out what's required for safety, to make sure the roads are adequate and good for traveling public. But these are roads that are not probably. The analysis won't determine that they're important, but I would argue, the road south out of Southeast High School, that was a decision we made because I think there's an issue of a teenager safety. But if you were to analyze that road, I'm sure it would not have qualified. And on it goes.
I would, in that case, Mr. Howell, it's a new high school, it's new traffic, it's new development. It would fall, what you did then probably would have fallen into a need basis versus a want basis.
Okay.
So I'm with you on most of the reasoning, but I've got a situation in my district where I've just wrote the letter telling them that it doesn't pass this and that and this and that, and if you want to do it on specials and pay for it yourself, then we could probably figure something out. And so,
Do we ever use specials for section line roads? Special assessment taxes?
I don't believe we have. Jim, do you know something?
but it's available.
When a development happens now, it has to have, if there's 20 homes in it, they have to pave the road, that's part of it, to the nearest paved road.
Right. But the developer does.
We've done specials on section line roads. It is rare, and sometimes that's in a place where something economic is occurring, and so there's a driver to do it. Dave has given one example. You're doing development out there, but it is a tool that exists in the toolbox literally anywhere.
Right. That's what I had found out myself. You're right.
But the problem comes into play, Jim. You might mention the agricultural. You cannot assess a big agricultural property. A lot of them, I mean, it just doesn't make sense. You can divide it out.
Right.
You want to.
Well, it's just the numbers don't work. They won't sign them because they can't afford them. So then you're starting to try to pull that benefit district down to the benefited people, and they don't like them that much because they're paying the 100% of the cost to put something in.
Yeah.
So it's a tool that exists, and it's just not
Option.
Yeah.
Okay.
Commissioner, do you have anything?
No, thank you.
Commissioner O'Donnell?
Yes. Thank you, David, and I think you and I, we've talked about this quite a few times over the last few years. So my one concern about it would be if we have a good operating pug mill, we're going to be inundated with requests from the township saying we have rows. And I know that's why you had the program to limit it. But like we saw last year, you can have one commissioner running for re-election demanding that he gets 2 extra miles in an election year to win a primary. And so that's what concerns me, that we're going to have it perverted for political reasons, because I think that's probably part of the reason why it started. And I already know it would be very difficult for me to go to every township and say we can't do it when they know that we have the millings sitting in a storage container somewhere or in some yard, and that we have a fully functioning pug mill that we could just go flip on. Because every time we put one of those roads on, if you're doing a relay if you're going over it every 5 to 6 years, well, that's 30 miles a year roughly that we're doing in the county, right? Just upkeep.
Well, we do about 100 miles a year with the 600. We're on the 6-year program.
But I thought there was 150 miles of this particular.
There is 150. These are a different kind of mile. These are cold mix,
right.
COLD versus hot mix. So
but the
these
pug
are
mill does
like
both.
temporary and fall apart in
but
4 to 7 years.
But the pug mill can do both, right?
No,
Cold
the pug
and
mill,
hot.
that's another story. We have a lot of chips that we have saved over the years, which we grind up a good road, and we have saved these. We have tons and tons and tons, tens of thousands of tons. Right. So there's a way to use that also. That's not a cold mix then. Mm-hmm. It's a recycled.
But I thought the pug could do both.
It can do both.
Okay.
It can do both, but it's still not of the quality of the hot mix road.
Right.
But those are of 2 different qualities from the pug mill. I haven't really got into that too much with you guys, but yes. Our thing at Public Works is to take care of the 150 miles of the coal mix roads we have out there. Mm-hmm. That it's not sustainable. They're going to fall apart, and we've got to have a way reasonably priced to take care of them. That's where we're coming from.
And I can promise you, when we have that economic study to show, I'll make a decision based on the economics of it instead of the politics of it. But what happened last year, I think, was unacceptable and highly political. And I'd go in front of a federal jury and put my hand to that, since I'm very accustomed to that. So anyway, it ticked me off, and that's why I said it's done. I told everybody that voted for it, done. This put a sour taste in my mouth, and I'll use that as the example 2 miles right before a primary election. Bad politics with a program like this. A program that I could see has good intentions. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Cruz?
So I think as a commissioner who does represent 100,000 people, I also make decisions for the entire county. I mean, that's what we're doing right now. And so what I'd like to add to this discussion is when it comes down to safety of our citizens, no matter where they live, if there's a road that's in anybody else's district that's worse than a road in my district that needs to be done, I'm of the opinion that we have safety first of all citizens rather than district that, district that. So if that makes sense to you guys, I feel like that's the policy that we should go by. It should be the worst road gets fixed first, regardless of whose district it's in. So if there's 15 roads that need to be fixed in your district, then that's what we should do. And so that's the policy that I think that we should create if it's not already there.
Thank you. I got a question. We got 150 miles of cold mix road right now. What is our plan on how do we fix those now for the next year or 2 or 3 until you get a pug mill, if that's what we choose to do? Do you grind that back up? Do you take it up? Do you?
No, in general, a lot of times we'll patch them with hot mix, be a patch on it. But we have some money in the CIP. I don't call it a lot of money, but it's in some of the years to help us with that. But it's still not sustainable. I think it's like $1.5 million in a few of the years, 1.4. Jim, you have it off the top of your head.
Yeah, so we'll be back next week to talk about the CIP, but it does include a project. So what used to be money that went to R342 that Commissioner Howell's talking about, last year we flipped it into R350 and said we're only going to use it on county roads. And it was kind of spotty through there. This program, we'll have it in every year. It's $1.5 million with the goal of doing up to 5 miles of county roads the county already has. And I guess I would just go back and make sure we're understanding the R342 and the preceding program is a conversion of a road that's a township responsibility to a county road.
Forever.
So the 600 that Dave talks about and the 150 that are cold mix, they're already county roads. And so the program that we'll bring to you next week is about trying to take a stab at the worst of those 150 miles of cold mix, just try to slowly convert those or beef those up. And I think challenge that we have with cold mix is, and Dave can explain to you in great detail why this is bad, they're not built from the bottom up. They don't have a base under them. So cold mix is going right onto a gravel road, and that's part of our problem. It's not that cold mix is bad, but we're not set up to do the stabilization of the base that you need to turn it into a permanent road. So we're trying, I think, we're maintaining the 150 as part of our preventative maintenance program in the CIP with patching and overlays that we can do. But there's a limit because there's no base under them. And the 5-year plan's got 25 miles approximately of stuff that we would go out and try to redo in a better way.
Let me just try and get in my mind the process. If you're building a cold mix road, from what I saw in the past, you take this pug mill and you mix all this stuff up, you dump it in the back of a dump truck and you haul it out to a road. You dump it down on the road, you run up and down it with a bunch of road graders, and you've now got a road. Is that the process or not?
Roughly, yes.
Okay. So now we've got this road down. So if we've got a new pug mill, do we then pull all that stuff back up, or do we dump more on top of it, or do we bring stuff out and mix it together with another road grader? How do you fix this road?
Road's going bad, you'll patch the bad spots, patch them with rock or hot mix, and then you'll overlay the entire road again with more cold mix.
Okay, that's what I'm trying to get at, is how we fix. We've got 150 miles. We've got that. That's in our requirements right now. So I was just trying to figure out how we're going to maintain that if we don't have a pug mill. Just how do we maintain those 150 miles if we don't have a pug mill to overlay this?
That's what I say. It's not sustainable. And what Jim's talking about is only 5 miles a year. You still got another 145.
Right. Okay.
And they do not last that long.
All right.
But at the end of the day, you patch them, and then at some point it gets so bad, a third-party vendor comes in and redoes the road. Is that, what's the end game on? You can't patch them forever.
No, we just keep patching.
Oh, forever?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, we patch and patch and patch.
Well, I
That's
think
the
that
150 miles.
the program that we have in for the county roads would be, those are likely to be total replacements of those cold mix roads. That $1.5 million for $300,000 a mile, we'll try to figure out the best way to rebuild it. Probably try to do some stabilization. We haven't even worked it all out yet, but would be better than a better level of construction than just putting the overlay on it. So, but we'd go after the worst ones that Tom is describing that are just blowing up, that you can't patch anymore. We'd go into those. I think you were describing that situation.
Do we do that, or do you guys hire a third party?
Right now, we would hire a third party.
Once again, the cheapest option for us over time is the pug mill.
No doubt.
So, as I said earlier, the other options really aren't going to keep our roads paved. You're going to go back to gravel, or you're going to incur so much money that you can't possibly maintain them. So, the only real option is a pug mill. I mean, even if you don't want to pave any new roads, just to maintain the old roads, you have to have a pug mill. If that's true, I think we've got to figure out how to get one.
There's two. I think the pug mill study is worth doing, and I think if David's numbers show that there's cost effectiveness to that, we ought to maybe think about it in CIP. What I worry about is that we continue to add county miles onto township roads, and that's okay if that's your policy decision, but we're going to have to increase his budget if we do that. And if we increase his budget, we have to decrease somebody else's budget. So there's a balancing act here. He does 600 miles of road right now, 150 cold mix and 350 hot mix or other types.
Well, we have 50 miles of gravel road, but I'm not even talking about that. But the rest, you got the hot mix is the most, and the 50 the gravel, and the 150. So you got basically 400 miles of hot mix. Those are round numbers.
I do like the idea of David should do 600 miles of road. If the cities annex roads away from us, then I think we could consider other paving projects on township roads to keep him at 600 miles. I worry that we just keep adding to his list, and at some point we're going to have 700 miles of county road instead of 600. And that's all fine, but we have to, there's an increase to his budget then. There's an increase to his staff. He's got to maintain those, though it's long-term cost. So I guess I'd like to do the pug mill study with the analytics that we're going to just try to maintain the 150 that we got, because I think that makes sense, and present that to you. The other item of whether we take on more township roads, a political discussion and policy discussion you all have to have, and we'll do what you say. But if we continue to take on township roads and make them county roads, it increases David's demand.
I agree. 3 or 4 weeks ago, I asked you all to start studying what it would take to maintain those 150 miles with a new pug mill, and that's one of the things we're waiting for. I totally agree with Commissioner Meitzner that any decision on paving a road needs to be made based on safety, the number of items that he's ticked off. That we need to get away from this political decision of what kind of road we maintain. I agree with Commissioner O'Donnell. We should not be making this on a political decision. I do agree with Commissioner Howell that we know our districts better than other people do, but we don't know, and that is a problem, because we don't know what's going on in those other districts that might be much more important than what's in our district. I know we may have something that we say, wow, this is really important in my district, but if there's something in another district that is higher priority, that's where we ought to be putting our time, effort, money. And that's not a decision that we should make individually. It's a decision that we ought to have engineers that are looking at all these roads all the time come to us collectively and say, this is the priority of roads that we ought to be maintaining. For us to go back to the old way of us saying, hey, each one of us are going to get a mile every other year, is politically motivated. It does not take into account the priority of other roads that might be much more high priority than the ones that you have in your district. So I will never vote for us to go back. Any other questions on Pug Mill?
Just for the record, I've been very supportive of Northwest Expressway and North Junction. Those are.
What's that got to do with it? I know they're not in your district, but let's not say that, hey, we're trading this off for that.
I know. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying I've been very supportive of things around the county, regardless of where they are.
And
I have been.
we appreciate your support.
Commissioners, can I get a clarification? Are we done with Public Works, or is there any other? I need clarification on EcoDevo and what we want to do with SCED. I have in my notes that, do we want SCED to come in and give a presentation to the commission?
Is it a valuable discussion? I don't know. We need to get a feeling from the other commissioners, but if we increase the amount of money we put in the GWP by another $100,000, that $100,000 has to come from somewhere. And SCED is at the top of my list.
Well, and just to address that, there is money in that economic development fund to add more money to GWP without cutting anyone else. But if the will is, and I'm kind of with you, Chairman, markets became...
There might be money in that, but maybe that money is more important in behavioral health or someplace too.
Okay. Market Street came in.
Manager, maybe it's worth having a discussion with the executives of GWP if they would want to consider something. Right.
I'm over here in the dark about SCED in the first place, so if somebody could maybe, if I'm the only one who needs to understand it, then maybe you guys could brief me on my own.
Mm-hmm.
But I would like to know what the heck they do and what they are.
Okay.
Fair question. Fair.
Any other commissioners have any feelings on SCED?
I just think we have to follow through with what we said last year. We said if you get your operation back in order and can show value, then we want to hear that. And that's what we said last year. I think we have not heard from him since then to know what he's done. So I think we have to give him the chance to at least come back and tell us what he's done. If there's nothing to report, then I think the answer is obvious. But I think to be respectful, we have to at least let him come in and tell us what's going on. If there's good news on his end, we have to know what that is. I don't mind hearing from him to find out what's going on right now. That's fine.
Okay. Any other comments?
Thank you for all the presentations so far. It's been helpful, especially first time through for us, for a couple of us at least. It's been helpful.
Lorian, what do you got in store for us?
Okay, we'll be back at Monday at 9 a.m. We'll be starting with public services.
Okay, and then we're going to come back in the afternoon too, aren't we?
Yes.
So you got us all day Monday again.
All day Monday and part of the day Tuesday.
So yesterday was Rusty's Donut Day, and I did Panera Day. I think Tim's bringing in donuts again.
Filet.
So.
We'll have 'em. Any commissioners have anything else?
No.
We can use the place down in the basement, the cafeteria. Tanya says they need more business at breakfast.
Any of y'all need anything before we break up? Have a good one. Have a good weekend.